I wanted to start this particular series with an esoteric subject, a more spiritual concept. I am a very practical person. I do love, doing things that actually wake us up, but there are profound ideas behind the things that we do in mindfulness and meditation. And I want to share some of that before we continue on to other things next week. So a few months ago, I read this book, which I shared with some of you, Aging as a Spiritual Practice, by Lewis Richmond. Aging as a Spiritual Practice. It's an interesting, very interesting book. There was one part that was real inspirational. There was a very compelling concept regarding time. And time for me has been very confounding, I think, ever since I was a child. I've kind of grappled with the idea of time. Like, I don't really get it. So I read his concept, which I'll share with you in a minute, and I followed up. There's a great modern philosopher, his name is Eckhart Tolle, and I listened to some of his musings on the topic of time. And after this deep dive, I think this really resonates, and I hope you appreciate it too, and if not, that's okay. We'll come back down to earth next week. The concept is this idea of a vertical dimension. There's the horizontal dimension and the vertical dimension in our lives. Yeah. So the horizontal dimension is what we typically think of as time. This is the hours, the minutes, the years, the eons, the millennia. This is the timeline that we live in. And it's something we basically, as humans, we've learned to measure, right? The planet goes around and we said, oh, okay, well, that's going to be a day or a year, whatever. As we age, this idea of time becomes a little more acute. It feels like it's moving more quickly. If you think about it too much, it can feel like, kind of a road, maybe in the desert, and each passing month or year, maybe there's road signs along the way. Some of them we like, some of them we don't, or regrets. So if you look off to your left in the horizontal dimension, that's the past. And there's your childhood and your adolescence and adulthood and etc. And then we're here, and we're sitting on the vertical dimension. That's now. And then off to the right is future, the potential things that can happen over there in the future. And that side is more fuzzy. Most people are trapped in this horizontal dimension. Like we're in this sort of time-obsessed journey. And the interesting thing is that it actually only exists in our minds. We can only comprehend the past by remembering it, and we can only comprehend the future by imagining possibilities. So this horizontal dimension is our mind, really. It feels real. And because we're so programmed, Velcro for bad and Teflon for good, we're regretting things that might have happened and we're worrying about things that might happen. Like there's the potential for this horizontal dimension to be living hell at times. Now there is this concept of the vertical dimension. This is the other dimension of existence. It's here. It's where you are on this timeline right now. It's this vertical dimension of life. It's like the vertical axis on a graph, a moving graph. It's the dimension that you are aware of when, you ask yourself, well, how do I know I'm alive right now, right? Well, you check in with a few things in this vertical dimension that tell you that you're alive right now. So you know it. I mean, it's an ever-present thing, and you know it. And it contains like the whole universe. It contains you, your mind, the planets, the stars, and everything else. Everything that exists right now, right here, is in this vertical dimension. And it's outside of time, right? Because it's not the past. It's not the future. When we were dancing like crazies, we were in the now. But now that's a memory. So this vertical dimension is outside of time. It's something very, very different, very profound. But why does any of this actually matter? Right? I mean, defining this vertical dimension is really important because it's really all there is. It's the only real thing. And so having a definition for it, this vastness, is kind of helpful, right? It's a whole plane of existence, you could say. I'm not saying that the past and the future aren't important, right? They're very important. But it's not the sum total of your life, the way most people would believe. The horizontal dimension is very, very important for carrying out the day-to-day tasks of physical life. Like, I could only prepare for this class to meet you and share with you if I had a concept of the future, and I could prepare for it. Very helpful. In fact, the horizontal dimension is the sort of defining characteristic of Homo sapiens. Right? My dog can't make plans to meet her friend in her favorite restaurant in 2 weeks. I bet she wishes she could. So the usefulness of this idea of time, it tricks us into thinking that it's our entire reality, that it contains our whole life and our whole happiness. What happened and what's going to happen. And that's a big problem. Time needs to be seen for what it is, which is it's a layer, kind of a flat layer of life. And, we need to spend time contemplating and honoring this vertical dimension, this non-time dimension where you actually exist. Some people, my brother used to be one of them, I actually used to be one of them, crave dangerous situations. My brother was a crazy skier, I was a motorcycler. driving at high speeds. Why do people do that? It's not because they want to die. It's the opposite. They want to feel really alive. Like it's this wish to access this spiritual realm. Like if you have to be so focused on the present moment that otherwise you'll cause great harm to yourself, then it'll allow you to stay there. Luckily, you don't have to put yourself in danger to access this realm. You know, people say that time is very precious, which it is. But what's actually precious isn't time. It's like the past and the future isn't precious. It's the one moment that's outside of time, like this moment that's never actually here because it's always gone. Like this is the most important one. There's a nice quote from Eckhart Tolle from a book called The Power of Now. Maybe some of you have heard of it. He writes, "Why is the present moment the most precious thing? Firstly, because it's the only thing. It's all there is. The eternal present is the space within which your whole life unfolds. The one factor that remains constant. Life is now. Secondly, the now is the only point that can take you beyond the limited confines of the mind. It is your only point of access into the timeless and formless realm of being." He has such a way of saying things. Let's do an exercise now. In the next, I'm going to start the timer. In the next 60 seconds, okay, I'll be quiet for 60 seconds. I want you to count your thoughts. Like breathe and empty your head out. And then see how many different thoughts you count in the 60 seconds. And if it's the same one, count it. Like if the same one, you let it go and it comes back, count it. All right, everybody got that? All right, so 60 seconds, starting now. And stop. All right, so can a few people just tell me how many they counted while we were doing that? A couple people. 11, great. 15, great. So obviously there's no right answer, right? I mean, it depends on where your head is right now, right? And like, Dorothy's saying she was sort of pumped and primed to not, she's like right here. So how did you think your thoughts and count them simultaneously? Like, how is that done? Yeah, so it came up out of somewhere, and then You noticed, right? And you noticed, so the thought, was that you? Or are there two yous in there? Actually, I mean, yes, there are, in a way. There's number one, there's your mind, which is producing these thoughts. And number two, there's this awareness, right? It's like your consciousness. It's like your spirit. It's like the real you. Like this aware observer of yourself is like your real you, the real spirit of who you are. You don't have to die to get in touch with your spirit. It's like right here. So, what we do in this practice is we try to find ways to spend more time being this watcher of the thoughts. That's why we meditate, to strengthen that capacity inside here, to watch the mind instead of getting dragged around by it. So this shift between awareness of what's going on, that's when we're in the vertical dimension. When you're watching like that, you can be watching what's inside and you can be watching what's around. That's when you're here. So we move along this horizontal dimension, and it's very practical. It's what allows us to live. But then we learn how to relax and savor that vertical dimension, the present moment.